Hello and welcome to episode 53 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is May 31st. And that means I'm recording on a Sunday so that I can have tomorrow off. But that also means I have had one day less of knitting and not quite as much to show as some other times. And after all the casting on of things of the last 2 weeks, I have a whole lot of projects at the moment, and I did not get round to knitting and crocheting on all of them. So today I'll just show you the ones I actually worked on. But before I do that, I'll show you what I'm wearing as usual. And as usual, I'll start off with my shawl that I'm wearing, and that's a really funny one. And it's a mix of knitting and crochet. I haven't done that very often, that I mix knitting and crochet, and it's knit out of, all of it is leftover yarn. So I have made something with each of these different yarns that I've used for this shawl. And I haven't finished all the things. I just realized this yarn, this multicolor yarn, I started crocheting a scarf that I've never finished. And some of the things I don't have anymore. I did a nice little vest with this yarn that I gave away. I think with the silver, I've only done little things. I wanted to crochet a top once, but I never finished that. Yeah, but there's lots of memories in this and lots of different yarns, different colors, different patterns. And the instructions, the pattern is out of this book. It's called Maschenzauber by Tine Solheim. I'll check if there's an English version. If there is, I'll link it underneath the video. Otherwise, I'll just link the German book. And in case you can read German knitting instructions. And even the cover shawl is just like the one that I knit. And she shows quite a few different versions of this shawl in her book. And it's a very beautiful book. It's beautifully laid out and photographed. And yeah, she tends to design very unique and different things. So this is probably the one that looks most like the one I did. And then there's another one with red as the main color, or pink. And then there's this one and this one and this one. And I've already made 2 of those. The other one is black and silver. And I showed it on the podcast almost a year ago, I checked. Yeah, so that's the shawl. And the thing is that with this shawl, I actually did use leftover yarns, but with the black one, I think I bought most of the yarn that's in the shawl. And most of them were just oddballs that I bought here and there. Some of them might have been leftovers, but a lot of it was bought for the shawl. And this one is all leftovers, or yarn that I already had or that I was given. Yeah, but I didn't buy anything for this. And I'm sure everyone who knits could make a shawl like that just from the yarns that they have used over the years. Okay, and the top I'm wearing is made of a cotton yarn. It's like a bulky yarn, but it's like the yarn itself has been knitted on a machine. And it's supposed to be slightly different colors. It doesn't really show up on screen as different colors. It looks like one color blue, but there's very slight variations in reality. And I just knit this lace pattern with the very big eyelets, just as a summery top that I can combine either with a long sleeve or short sleeve or just a top underneath. Yeah, it's quite versatile and I like it. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today. And on to finished objects. I do not have a lot of finished objects and I'm missing, I'll be right back. It's the only real finished object I have for today. And I forgot to put it in place. And that's the grey hat. I had started that last week and I knew I was going to finish it. And it's the pattern Fog by Faye from Yuki Knits. Forgot her last name now. At least I remembered her first name. And I tested the pattern. I made a red one exactly as written, and then I knitted this grey one and I added rounds to it. So I just added pattern repeats in the height, and I'm very happy with this hat now. It fits me perfectly, I think. And it has still some, I can either pull it down a little bit at the back, or I could pull it down to the side if I wanted to. And if I put my hair up, I can even fit all my hair in there. So I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. And I was almost in time. I think I was in time finishing the hat and giving the feedback, but I might have forgotten to put the pictures up. I'll do that as soon as possible. Yeah, but it's a nice little pattern. And I'm not quite sure whether she's already published it or not, but if you click on the link underneath the video for my hat, as soon as the pattern gets published, it will be linked, because I've already put I put something in so that when it is published, the link will go live. Yeah, so that's the only real finished object for today. I have a partially finished object, and that's the crochet piece of the Carnaby crochet along that I'm doing with the Simply Crochet magazine. And I finally finished the cotton version of the May magazine. So every month they publish a magazine, and every month there's one piece of the pullover or the blanket, depending on what you want to make. And I am crocheting 2 pullovers because I can only do 1 or sometimes 2 little pieces a month. I decided I'll do 2. And I'm crocheting one with sock yarn, DK weight sock yarn in neon colors, almost exactly like the colors in the magazine. And this one has completely different colors, and it's cotton yarn, so this is going to be a summer version of that rather crazy crochet pullover. Yeah, then on to works in progress. I'll start with the socks. I have continued on my grey shorty socks, the cotton shorty socks, and haven't done too much, but I had just done the beginning last week, I think, and I finished the little rolled cuff, and I knit half a heel. I think it's almost exactly half the heel. So this is half a fish lips kiss heel, and once I finish the heel, I will add the same short rows I did on this sock. You can see this is where the heel was finished, and then I added short rows up to here, and then I'll just simply add some stockinette to it. And the other sock, the second sock I was knitting, are these spiral socks, and I decided this is long enough. This is for me, it has maybe this much of a cuff, which I think is okay. If someone with bigger feet would wear it, they'd be rather short, but they should still fit. And I didn't knit the toe because I was at home when I decided they're long enough, and I realized I forgot to bring needles to knit a toe because I was knitting the sock on the chiaogoo mini circular needles, and this is the beginning of the second sock. Not a lot, but at least I started. And there is a way of knitting the toe with these needles if you knit it like a short row heel and then sew the stitches together at the end. But I didn't feel like doing that because that would give the toe a very obvious top and bottom and left and right. And I want to do a toe that's symmetrical, so it doesn't matter how you put the sock on, because that's one of the things about the spiral socks, because it doesn't have a heel. You can just put it on any way you want, And the good thing is that you walk on different parts of the sock, so it won't wear out as quickly as a normal sock. So that's why I want the symmetrical toe, but for that I need either the normal double pointed needles or the Necoflex needles that you can use for small circumferences. And I decided, and that was an idea that I had before, that I'm going to add a single colored toe, and that's why I cut the yarn off and put it on some waste yarn. And I'm not quite sure which color yet, and I might put different colors on the two socks. We'll see how that works out. So I hope to finish at least this toe until next week, so you can see which color I chose for that, and then we'll see what happens with the second sock. Now the third pair of socks I'm working on, I'm actually working on both socks at the same time. I'm using Opal Abo yarn from the subscription. Both the others were Opal yarns, of course, as usual. And this is the mystery knit along from the Kunkel Stube, from a German knit group, and one of their members designed these socks as a mystery knit along, and this is what I have so far. I finished the cuff, that was last week's bit, and then this week we got the pattern for the leg, and this is what one pattern repeat looks like. And I've already seen in the WhatsApp group that we have that if you fold the socks like this, the pattern looks a lot nicer. So that's what I'm trying to show you now. Yep. So this is what one pattern repeat looks like. And the pattern says to knit 3 repeats, but that would be too long for my short legs. So I'm going to do just 2 pattern repeats, and that should be a nice length for my legs. And yep, and then on Saturday, next week Saturday, we'll get the next bit of the pattern, and then we'll see what kind of heel we're supposed to knit. Yep, so that's the mystery knit along, and that's all the socks. I did not knit on the wrist warmers. I did not finish the gnome, which is really bad because there's not a lot to do, but I just didn't get around to doing that. But I did continue knitting on my haramaki. And that was one of the projects where I ran into a bit of a problem last week. For some reason I had several problems, but you'll hear about that. Yeah, so that's the haramaki that I started knitting with this yarn. This is a very old opal sock yarn ball. And I've started knitting the single color stripe that's supposed to go through the middle of the haramaki. But the problem was that I was supposed to knit 20 centimeters, then add 6 centimeters of the contrast color, and then knit another 26 centimeters with the main color, and that will give me the 52 centimeter circumference that you can wear as a hat or as a cowl, and if you're slim enough, as a like belly warmer. But I was waiting for the 20 centimeters to be reached, and I was a bit worried that the ball of yarn looked so small, and I started measuring and weighing my yarn, and I realized I didn't have enough yarn. This is less than 20 centimeters, but this is already half the yarn I have. And that's when I looked into the book, into the pattern, and I realized I was supposed to have 2 balls of yarn. So that was a problem, because this is such old yarn. I don't even know what the color name is. There's no way I can get another ball of that yarn. So I decided, because the moment I weighed it, it was exactly half the ball of yarn. So I'd exactly knit 50 grams. So I decided to knit the contrast color that I have, and I'm going to knit all of this. This is a leftover of one of the haramakis that I knit for myself, and I decided to completely knit this up. Then I'll knit the other half of my main color, and I will probably not have, it will probably not be wide enough, but I'm thinking of adding a second contrast color. And that was partly the reason that I did it now, because then I have one stripe on that side, and then the other stripe will be exactly opposite, because this is half the ball of yarn. So I thought that's a nice symmetrical thing to do. And if it's not quite wide enough, I can make sure that the second contrast color gets a bit wider, so I can knit it. I just make sure I have a full ball of yarn so I can knit it wide enough so that this fits. Yeah, so that was a bit of a problem, but I think I found a good solution. And yeah, now I'm knitting just the same thing, lots and lots of garter stitch and a few increases and decreases at the ends so that it is knit on the bias like this. And yeah, we'll see how this works out. And I have no idea what I'm going to use as a second contrast color yet, but I'm sure I'll find something. So that's the haramaki, and then there's the baby surprise jacket. If you do not know how the baby surprise jacket works, you might think that this does not look a lot like a jacket, and you might wonder why I didn't knit to the end of the row, but actually I did knit to the end of the row because at the moment my rows just go from here to here. So for those who know the jacket know exactly at which point I am in the pattern, and I think I'll just show you. It's nice if you have people there to make them guess how this can become a jacket, but I can't play the game with you, so I'll just show you. So these are going to be the seams on top of the shoulders and arms like this, and this is one of the fronts. This is the left front and the right front, and this is the back. And now I'm adding length to the back without adding width to the whole thing. Might be a bit difficult to understand, but as you can see, I've added the contrast color in between those two stripes that look almost the same. And yeah, and I hope that I can get through the next three colors. I might get far enough to just finish it off in the contrast color, but we'll see about that. Yeah, I think nothing else to say, except for I really love how the needles go with the yarn. That's just a little extra something that I enjoy while I'm knitting. Baby surprise jacket. My sister wants me to finish it quickly so that we can send it off. But she's still knitting on the blanket, so not that big of a rush. Now, that was all the small things I've been knitting. Now on to pullovers and jackets. I'll start off with my Hitofude jacket. That's the Japanese pattern for the jacket that you can knit with one piece of yarn if it's long enough. I've hardly knit on it. Last week I had 3 more rows to go before I could do the next increase. I have actually knit those 3 rows, but nothing more. But the one thing that I have done is I put it on a longer needle. So now it's not quite as bunched up, and maybe it's a bit easier to see how this is a jacket. So this is the neck, and these are the sleeves. This is the back, and these are the fronts. So the fronts hang a lot higher than the back because this is all knit in one piece. Yeah, but it looks nice, and now I can do the next increase, and the rows will get even longer, and it'll take me even longer to have it grow, but slowly but surely I'll keep knitting on it and I'll finish it someday. And then my pullovers, I think they got most of my knitting time and my love this last week. I'll show you the fade lace pullover out of Drachenwolle. And I was already knitting on the 3rd color last week. So this is the first color with the lace yoke, patterned by Romy. Then I faded in the second color. This is the second color I just knit down. And then this is the third color. I faded that in. And then I had to change the stitch count so the black wouldn't just stick in that one spot, but would start to spiral, which it did beautifully. And I finished the section, the stockinette section, with the third color, and I've started the ribbing. And because the ribbing sort of sits on my hips, it's underneath, so my waist is probably somewhere around here. So because I get wider at that point, I increased the stitches before I started knitting the ribbing. And because of that, the black spots are completely going crazy now and in completely different places than before, which I think is fantastic. I really wanted the colors to go crazy a bit, jump around a bit more. And yeah, can't wait to finish the ribbing, see what it looks like. And then I can pick up the stitches and knit the sleeves. And then, yeah, I think that won't take too long to get done. And the other pullover I knit on is again with the Opal Abo yarn and with the white. And that was the second pullover that I had problems with, but I think I already knew that last week, that the yoke wouldn't be big enough to incorporate the pattern that I had meant to go in there. But I wasn't too sure, so I said I would finish the second pattern, which I have done. So this is the second pattern that I picked out. And then, as I already thought I would do, I am going to repeat the first pattern here. And I've decided I'm not going to use the third pattern that I wanted to do, but I'll keep that for another pullover. And then I'll probably just use it as the only pattern, or maybe, I don't know how to do the increases then. So I'll have to think about it. Maybe that will be a pullover where I put the pattern on top of the ribbing instead of in the yoke or something like that. Don't know yet, but I'll keep that pattern for something else. And for this pullover, I'll just stick to the patterns that I already have, which I think are very nice. And because I'm going to repeat this pattern here, I decided I'm going to repeat the second pattern at the end of the sleeves and the front and back. Yeah, and that way I will have knit both patterns twice, and I hope it'll look nice. But I love the yarn, I love the blue colors that keep changing, and I think the combination with white is really nice, and yeah, really enjoy doing that, and can't wait to keep knitting on that. Yeah, so that's all the pullovers, and then the only thing that's left is my Haruni shawl that we are knitting as a knit-along. So I haven't done too much on that again, but I did add, I don't know, maybe one pattern repeat. But what I have also done is I've filmed the second how-to tutorial video to show you how to knit the pattern. So the bright pink was what I showed in the first video, and I had to undo some of the rows that I did then, so I would have the right number to do one pattern repeat of chart B, and this is part of chart B. I think these are 10 rows. Yeah, these are 10 rows of chart B, and the other 6 rows I still have to knit. I didn't knit them in front of the video, otherwise the video would have gotten too long, and there's nothing new happening. So it's just that the decreases and the yarn overs, they just stack on top of each other, and it's quite easy. If you got this far, then you can do the other 6 rows without any trouble. I'm very convinced of that. So I'll finish the 6 rows on this, and I'll probably pick a third color to demonstrate chart C, and try and film that at some point. And but I will also try and finish the repeats of chart A on my shawl, so that I can start on chart B for real and not just with one pattern repeat. Yeah, so in the tutorial I also tell you that if you want to make a bigger shawl, as I am planning to, what you need to do is you have to add 2 repeats of chart A, 2 or 4 or 6 or 8, so that you can go onto chart B. So that's important to keep in mind. If you only add 1 or 3 or an odd number of repeats, then the numbers won't add up, won't match. Yeah, so that's all I knit and crocheted this last week. And I hope you enjoyed watching my projects grow and hear me talk about them. And the next video I'll record not tomorrow, but next week, Monday. And yeah, we'll see how far I get with my other things. And maybe I will also work on the ones that I haven't shown you today. Yeah, so that was it. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.